welcome everyone. This is the first LinkedIn Live hosted by Qapita in 2024. My name is Amit and I would like to welcome you all. Today I'm joined by my good friend Glenn from Seedefy. He's Chief Operating Officer at the company. And I think we have a pretty good chat today about a bit of a recap of last year and then what to look out for in 2024, specifically in the startup ecosystem in Southeast Asia. So Glenn, thanks for joining us. Really good to have you on board. How you been? How's the start of the year been for you?
I'm good. Start of the year is already kicked off really busy for us. Thank you, Amit, for having me. Really nice to meet everyone and good to be here.
Yeah, awesome, mate. So look, I had a few things I would like to cover off today. I think there's different angles this conversation can go. But to kick us off, I would love to, and for the audience to get to know you a little bit better, do you mind just telling us a little bit more about your personal background? I know you've been in this space for a while, worked for a couple of organizations, pretty interesting journey. Any highlights you would like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. So again, nice to meet everyone. I'm Glenn, currently the COO at Seedefy, and the problem that we are trying to solve essentially the cross-border funding gap, right? And how we're trying to do this is to build a more interconnected startup ecosystem, around Southeast Asia, and then eventually globally. Right. A little bit about myself. I've been in the startup space for a couple of years now. Really worn multiple hats across the ecosystem. Being a key operator in a fintech startup here in Singapore, and then moving to a boutique VC, investing in early stage startups. And more recently, I was with KPMG Singapore, serving as a fintech consultant. So largely working with governments and regulators on developing the startup ecosystem and fintech regulations as well.
Nice one. Yeah, so I've done a bit of everything, but sounds like you have quite a bit of a relevant experience to try to solve the problems you're working on at the moment. You mentioned obviously the key focus for Seedefy is to help the ecosystem out around the funding, which is obviously a key important topic in this space. So I think the way I'd like to start a conversation, would love to sort of get your perspective and thoughts, and I guess personal reflection on the year of 2023. There's a lot of good things, a lot of development, a lot of innovation in tech happening, so quite a bit of positives. But at the same time, I think it's fair to say it hasn't been as straightforward, and the market conditions haven't been all that positive as we may have been accustomed to in the past. So I'd love to get your thoughts. What were sort of your key takeaways? What are the things you've noticed, I guess, in the startup venture capital landscape, and specifically around Southeast Asia last year?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I think first off, it's VC winter, the entire 2023. Venture capital deal size, deals all at sort of an all-time low, right, compared to the hot years we had in 2021. So venture capital winter, it's always a good time for founders to really start to build businesses in a bear market, I feel, because a lot of the founders really don't have anything to lose, right? Retrenchment, layoffs are at an all-time high. So it's perfect time to build a business in 2023. And yeah, I think a lot of the VC winter is also attributed to macroeconomic factors, right? Such as rising interest rate, cost of borrowing, political shocks around the world as well, Ukraine, Russia, and stuff like that. So a lot of the VCs that we work with actually do have the dry powder, but a lot of them are sort of holding back to see sort of what unfolds of all this noise in the market in 2023. But yeah, so VC all-time low. We saw the rise of ChatGPT as well. Amit, AI has been around for a long, long time in the VC space, but after the rise of ChatGPT really shined spotlight on AI, right? And personally, what I've seen is a lot of startups are jumping into AI. I'm not sure if all the use cases are valid, but really they're chasing sort of the AI trend, right? I think it's double-edged sword, right? Inflates valuation across the board. There is likely going to be a correction next year as well, a consolidation across a lot of these AI companies, and the ones that develop true use cases that can benefit, right, in areas such as medtech, health tech, where AI is used to improve accuracy. I think those with solid use cases and corporate backings are well placed for 2024.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely the case. And obviously, an emerging trend everyone's watching with a lot of interest. And obviously, in the different parts of the world, there have been pretty substantial initial capital raises by AI firms, and I think a lot of good projects coming out.
Yeah.
But Glenn, from your perspective, because you obviously spent some time advising on the fintech sector a little bit more, what are your thoughts on that front? Because obviously it's been a mainstay in the Singapore ecosystem quite a lot. A lot of great fintech companies have been built here. In terms of more traditional industries rather than emerging sectors, how do you see them handling the current market conditions?
Yeah, so thanks again. Personally, very biased against fintech. I'm a fintech guy, so fintech to me has always been dominating sort of the tech industry, you know. And within fintech itself, you know, we see a lot of digital banking players starting to come up, core banking infrastructure, a lot of B2B sort of players as well. Payments companies trying to innovate with blockchain as well, so that's very interesting to watch. And I think one thing that has really gotten traction over the last 2 quarters in 2023 are green fintechs, right? Fintechs that have sustainability and ESG sort of embedded in their solutions. You know, with many countries, including Singapore, sort of releasing their net zero ambitions, it sort of really cascaded down to all the different government agencies, regulators on really trying to sort of drive decarbonization around the space. So, you know, a lot of the smarter founders would learn how to capitalize on what the government is trying to push and really just ride the trend.
Okay, that's one. And I guess just to wrap up conversation, like looking back on what you've been saying, is there any one key lesson or maybe like one big surprise from last year that sort of caught you off guard and now you have it in consideration as you look forward to 2024?
Yep. So I guess my one key takeaway from 2023, even at the end of 2022, I sort of just thought this. I've been advising founders as well, right? Focus on strong unit economics. I think there are a lot of unicorns that made it to the end, IPO, and then when we really drill down on their unit economics, it's a mess, right? You know, then they're struggling to hit profitability, valuations get wind down. So my advice is, or rather my key takeaway is, founders should always try and build good unit economics as a foundational start before you start to sort of scale any business up, right? So strong unit economics is my key takeaway. And I think with that, puts you in a better position to raise money from investors as well.
Yeah. So want to continue on that thought about raising money from investors. So I think let's have a look forward and maybe discuss your opinion of where you think the fundraising trends and dynamics will head into this year. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Do you think we're going to see more or less of the same? What's your kind of outlook and predictions and your best guesstimate? None of us know what's going to happen, but where do you think we're heading?
So I definitely hope there will be a recovery in 2024. That's for sure. I do expect to see more VCs coming in at the earlier stage, you know, seed stage, as I was mentioning in 2023. There are probably a lot of great companies being built. And so when the venture sort of capital outlook recovers in 2024, hopefully these guys get funded at a seed stage. So definitely more early stage deal next year. Sort of that would help pick up the momentum and then feed into the later stage. I think one thing in 2024 that I hope we have a better outlook is the exit landscape, right? And I think in 2023, apart from the other factors that contributed to VC winter, it's also a devastating sort of VC exit landscape, right? And exit has always been crucial to investors. So no matter how good of an investor you are, if you can't exit, then your money's still stuck there anyways, right? So hope for a better exit landscape in 2024, and I do foresee earlier stage deals getting funded at least in the first half of 2024.
Yeah, that's one. The other one is when we look at the outlook, and I think both of us can operate in Southeast Asia as well as other markets, but as I guess the home and primary focus for both of us. how do you see it playing out in Southeast Asia? Because a lot of times when people say Southeast Asia, they sometimes think, Singapore, maybe Indonesia, but once again, there's a lot of trends, a lot of startup activity happening all over the place. I know you spent some time in Vietnam recently, so sort of love to disassemble Southeast Asia in different parts of the world and maybe share your insights and thoughts about different jurisdictions and the trends you're seeing on a more local front.
Sure. So during my time as a sort of fintech consultant, when we really assessed Southeast Asia landscape, Singapore always comes to mind as the place to go, right? Be it incorporation, setting up your business, getting funding, right? And I must say Singapore really did a great job in developing the startup ecosystems. The different government agencies from Enterprise Singapore to IMDA really got together, aligned what they need to get out to really support the startup ecosystem, from grants to investment funds to co-working space and stuff like that. The Singapore government has done a really, really good job on that part. All right. I was recently in Vietnam, Amit, and I think a few key takeaways I had there, sort of when engaging with the local startup ecosystem. There are a lot of potential in talent, right? Because Vietnam is probably the largest outsourcing hub in Southeast Asia, right? With that, a lot of the young talents there are very technically trained, right? When I was on the ground speaking to them about data analytics, the softwares that they're building, they really know their stuff. And that's really, really good, right? I think Vietnam being positioned as a sort of outsourcing hub really help develop the younger talents, the skills they need to propel in this time of age. So a lot of potentials there. I feel that the venture capital scene there is still quite weak. There are some prominent VCs there, but it's really not enough capital to support the growth of startups or rate of innovation that's happening in Vietnam. That's why I think it's interesting market for us at Seedefy, because we have huge capital concentration here in Singapore, right? So how can we channel some of that into promising startups in Vietnam, and of course the other countries around Southeast Asia as well? But lots of potential, especially coming from the talents. For government support, I haven't had the chance to really dive deep, but yeah, I think it's a great ecosystem. It's a very nice country, very efficient, and yeah, it's a great place to be.
No, I agreed on that. I know we were chatting just before this, between us, and I've shared that. I think last year was pretty lucky to explore different jurisdictions across Southeast Asia, and the Vietnam trip was probably one of my favorites. I think really good potential, really good ecosystem. Everyone's looking to help each other out, and yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to look forward to, and then see how that develops as well. One of the things as part of the work you do with Seedefy, it's obviously helping out early stage founders and businesses as well. And I think one important aspect of that and any kind of startup ecosystem is building a bit of a community. And I know you try to participate, meet people in different events. Do you want to talk us a little bit about how you kind of see that playing out across Southeast Asia? What's important for you at Seedefy, and also how do you feel all the micro ecosystems across Southeast Asia can maybe come together, help each other out? Obviously, as you mentioned, Singapore is quite developed on the capital front, heavily concentrated, but there's a lot of potential we're seeing all over the place. What would be sort of your suggestions, recommendations to local players, how to leverage community, how to make it known, how to network with capital providers? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're trying to build here at Seedefy. We're trying to grow our community of venture capital funds. We already work with, I would say, majority of the tier one top VCs regionally, right? And we also work with the portfolio companies and accelerators around the region. So this way we try and socialize, I would say, the better quality startups to our investors. Typically these investors would always like to invest in a startup with some form of institutional backing, right? Be it a corporate, another VC fund, or having gone through some accelerator program. So if you're looking to sort of join, get some funding from Singapore, please feel free to join our community as well. Reach out to me. All right. As for the other countries around Southeast Asia, so we will definitely be looking to replicate what we did in Vietnam last December, across Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand as well. So that includes having an event, really getting the local startups and VCs in a room, right? And my objective there is, of course, to meet the guys on the ground and to understand the unique pain points to the local ecosystem, right? Is it meeting investors? Is it fine-tuning their pitch, their business models? What sort of business really works in markets like Vietnam, right? We're seeing a lot of D2C type companies in Indonesia as well. But yeah, I think Southeast Asia has always been a very, very promising startup ecosystem.
Yeah, and I guess like one of the key things to keep in mind is that when we look at Southeast Asia and some of the markets, it's important to keep a global perspective as well. And judging by the audience, we have people dialing from all over Southeast Asia, including Singapore. We also have audience from Hong Kong, India as well, other jurisdictions across Asia. So my question for you is like, how do you kind of try to keep up what's happening in other parts of the world? Because all the times there's a lot of learnings we can take from other ecosystems, and obviously there's a lot of interlinked, operations. So a lot of Singaporean startups may have, teams in other parts of the world, or they may be targeting clients in Middle East, Europe, US. So how do you personally kind of keep up with everything that's happening in the world, right? Because that's quite a bit, a lot of good stuff, a lot of noise. How do you navigate it yourself?
To be honest, so I do daily readings every morning, about the startup ecosystem, macroeconomic news as well. I think one region that's particularly interesting is the Middle East, GCC region. I think you briefly brought it up. They used to be a very commodity-heavy sort of market, right? Oil-based. With the decarbonization and stuff like that going on, they have been trying to diversify out of their economy. I'm sure everyone's familiar that they spent a couple $100 million bidding on soccer players as well, just to boost tourism. They're building a new city called Neom that's going to cost like 500 billion or 50 billion or something like that. They're spending a lot of money in financial services as well, right? This includes venture capital fund, and I would say Southeast Asia is actually one sort of market that these investors are really interested in as well. So yeah, I think the middle is lots of exciting stuff happening there. And I think our mission here really is build a more interconnected ecosystem around Southeast Asia and sort of see how we can work with our counterparts in the Middle East to really synchronize and gel both startup ecosystems, be it, communities, events, startup and investor meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, definitely Middle East, Saudi Arabia is trying to put themselves on the map, quite a bit of capital, but like a lot of good, really emerging startups across Middle East. So they're definitely a region to watch. One of the things you mentioned, like you try to keep up and, read daily. Any recommendations for the listeners around good newsletters to follow? Like obviously there's some obvious ones. Backscoop's doing a pretty good job. Shout out to Banda in Southeast Asia, but what would you recommend people checking out if they're keen to know about what's the latest in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so I think Backscoop is amazing. So for me, I always start with TechCrunch. It's a more global, just to see what sort of deals are getting funded, right? What are the trends in the market? And then I boil down to Southeast Asia. So, Tech in Asia, E27, all have sort of great publications, news about the funding, what's happening in the ecosystem as well. So yeah, TechCrunch, I always go global from TechCrunch, and then in Southeast Asia would be Tech in Asia and E27.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of both Tech in Asia, E27, they organize a lot of physical events. And I know both you and I attended a whole bunch over the last few months and last year. But if you look ahead to 2024, do you have anything penciled on your calendar you really look forward to attending or checking out?
Man, for me, every year there's always one event I look forward to, and that is Singapore FinTech Festival. Being a FinTech guy, it's like a huge playground, right? All these big corporates showing off their innovation and stuff like that. It's really interesting, and I never really understood the impact of Singapore FinTech Festival on the local startup ecosystem. But safe to say, being the largest, most renowned fintech festival globally has really put Singapore on the map of startup ecosystem. People from all over the world travel down to Singapore just to attend Singapore Fintech Fest. It's a great event. Always looking forward to it every year.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think last year was my first one because I was a still child of man in the prior year. So yeah, it's probably not. It was a lot more massive than I expected. So it was definitely a lot of fun. And I think this time the Thai Global also had their summit. And got hosted at the same time. Yeah, so there's definitely met a lot of great people. So I definitely want to look out for this year for anyone interested in the space. So Glenn, the other ones, I want to sort of change the gears a little bit. I think we've got a pretty good insights on the macro level. But for you personally, how are you thinking about sort of the rest of the year? So obviously, there's quite a lot of work to get done on Seedefy as well. On a personal level, any specific things you looking forward to?
No, I have to be honest. I'm just excited for what's to come in 2024 for Seedefy. I think we are growing at a very, very rapid pace. So really want to cover Southeast Asia by first half of 2024, and then tackle the Middle East in second half of this year. All right. So I think it's exciting just to be able to meet startups every day, travel down to places like Vietnam, getting to know the local guys as well. I think it's exciting what's to come for 2024.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as we're sort of getting closer towards the end of our chat today, I'd love to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more kind of about Seedefy and the work that you do. So I think we got some questions from the audience about raising funds, how that process works in general. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about your strategy, your philosophy? Because obviously there's a lot of different providers, but how do you try to approach and tackle the problem of helping startups out?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to helping these startups is really getting everyone in a room, right? Typically, as I said, huge capital concentration here in Singapore. So what we do at Seedefy is essentially try and streamline the fundraising process, right? It's a lot of inefficiencies if you are based, say, in Vietnam or Indonesia and really want to raise money in Singapore. Your options are to try and cold email them, which is unlikely a hit, or to fly down to a networking event in hopes of meeting one of their team members just to get in the door, right? So we're trying to get everyone in the room. We're already working with 90 sort of VCs regionally whom we have a contact in with, right? So then the problem is about quality startups. How can we really help the better startups get funding to really achieve what they want to do, right? So we work with top accelerators as well, such as Plug and Play and Accelerating Asia, to really help their cohorts, or rather socialize their cohorts with the VCs regionally, right? Sure, a lot of the VCs could attend the demo day, but not. I'm sure that a lot of the attention is diluted with so many startups pitching. So yes, we work with accelerators as well as VC portfolio companies to be socialized with other investors as well. So it's really like it's a close community, I would say. We help the quality startups meet investors, and for the investors, we help them find a relevant deal flows as well. So our Seedefy platform is able to automatically match investors and startups, right, through your vertical, your mandate, your geography. We show you the investors that can invest in you, right? You definitely do not want to speak to an investor that can't invest in you. It's just going to be a waste of time. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We are a startup ourselves. The team really got together about 1.5 years ago. We were trying to ideate how to alleviate the funding gap. Alleviate the funding gap, and we've been in the market 4 to 5 months now. So our traction is really great, and hope to keep up the momentum in 2024.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's an important area. And even at Qapita, we work with companies across the life cycle and a lot of early stage ones. And then obviously, raising capital is a problem they have to solve, and they try to stand out. So a question that I had for you is that obviously there's a lot of good advice, and there's not one blueprint or checklist to follow and copy paste. They'll make you stand out. But in your experience, have you seen anything like unorthodox that someone has done to really, put them on a map to stand out, make it a little bit different? Obviously, you can, work on your pitch deck, make sure it works well, find the fit in terms of the market or the problem in the founder. But any kind of interesting case studies you wouldn't mind sharing that maybe you think others can learn from?
So I guess I want to highlight a specific startup actually based in Myanmar, right? I haven't really heard much about Myanmar startup ecosystem, but just before we cap off last year, I actually participated in sort of an event with Techstars in Yangon. So it's Myanmar. I met a couple of great startups there, and the venture capital funding scene is almost non-existent there. Right? So a lot of them try and rely on the other Southeast Asian parts. And what I really like about this specific startup is doing great impact in the real economy. What do I mean by that, right? It's an agri-tech. Agriculture is still huge in Myanmar, right? So they really try and help to digitize what I call the real economy. And I see immense value in that, right? In Singapore, it's about digitizing the SMEs. I think if you can find a way to do that at scale, you have built a very, very powerful platform of software. So I think for them, what's interesting for me is, they're serving the real economy, providing a lot of jobs, helping a lot of farmers. So for me, I've been trying to see how we can help them raise money from investors here in Singapore. And I guess what stood out is they are already profitable. So I don't think it's hard for them to raise money, but they really want to raise money to scale out of Myanmar as well, right? So definitely had a chat with the founder, and I think Seedefy is a good fit for him. So we'll see how we can help him. But I guess if you have a profitable business already, a lot of the VCs will be looking at you. So that could really help you stand out from the crowd.
Definitely. Which was a bit of a absolute nice to have, became more of a requirement in I guess recent months and years, and at least the pathway. But if you're already there, then they're definitely something that can help you stand out.
Actually, if I can just add on a sort of on top of that. So actually, I mean, in 2023, when sort of venture capital funding was at an all-time low, it really forced founders to think about their business model. How do I stay afloat? I need to become profitable, right? Just to stay lean. And I think what this does to founders, at least the ones that survived in the year of 2023, taught them the concept of capital efficiency. Right? How can they make the dollar go further? And I think these startups, when hopefully the venture capital scene recovers in 2024, I think these startups would do really, really well. That was it. Thanks, Amit.
No, awesome, mate. Look, I just want to thank you for your time. I think it was a good chat. There's definitely quite a lot happening. I'd love to hear your personal perspective as well and interests, because once again, we're part in the space, but all of us coming from different backgrounds, we have our own tendencies, our experience. So everyone brings something different to the table. So my final question for you, obviously this year going to be all over the place, traveling around Southeast Asia, trying to connect startups. What will be the best way for anyone to reach out to you and find you? And if they're keen to, learn more about your experience or see how Seedefy may be able to help them out. Best way to find you: LinkedIn, email, anything else?
LinkedIn. I can leave my email somewhere. But just drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'm usually quite responsive, and always happy to connect and learn from like-minded individuals across various industries as well.
Oh, sure. Awesome, Glenn. Really appreciate your time. That was really great. So thanks all for dialing in. That was the first LinkedIn Live of Qapita of 2024. We're really glad to have Glenn join us here from Seedefy. Keep an eye on the future editions. We'll be having conversations with thought leaders across Asia, Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand on various topics that have to do with equity. Thanks very much. My name is Amit from Qapita, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks, everyone.